Everybody wants to be recognized for themselves when borrowing a piece of someone else's work. But if you want to remain in the game while doing it this way, then you better get some clearance first. And that's what we're going to talk about coming up right here on the Music Money Makeover show. You can see I'm wearing my Black Today Music Money Makers, and because things are going to get a little heavy. So what is a cover? Covers are essentially re-recordings of original compositions. They are best created when performed word for word with arrangements close to the original. However, many artists choose to create covers that deviate from the original by changing lyric, style, language, or other elements, moving them further from the original composition to give it their own unique flair. All right, this is many of you all. But it's important to note that artists creating new lyrics over previously released instrumentals are not covers, and they should obtain clearance from the publishers as well as the record label, because this is actually a sample, meaning you took the beat, you put your vocals, this is typically for rappers, you put your vocals over the top, took the beat, and you did your thing. That's a sample. That's this conversation for later down the line in the show. But let's keep going through 3 more topics to really get into how this is going to get ugly here. So what is a remix? Remixes are new creations based on original compositions, designed to appeal to a different audience than initially intended. These can be produced by the original record labels or by independent producers and DJs seeking to establish their brand and reputation. They can also be recorded by artists seeking validation to build their brand as well. It's important to distinguish remixes from sampling. Remixes typically use a substantial, if not all, of the original sound recording and composition to create a new track. In contrast, samples utilize a smaller portion of the sound recording and composition. Okay, so just picture the remix as people who you see remixing original records with a different artist's vocal. That's kind of like a mashup, but let's say you take the acapella vocal and you put a new beat under it, or you take the original beat and the vocals and then you chop up that beat, rearrange it in a different way, and then you call it a new arrangement of it, right? But it's still from the original, and you can do different versions. This is when I talk about the versions, these are remixes. It contains portions of the original sound recording and composition. Okay, and I really want to explain how this stuff is clear, but I'm going to in a minute. I got to hold myself. I got to not jump the gun here, okay? But as long as you understand remixes, then we can go into our next topic here. What is a sample? Samples are pieces of sound recordings and compositions combined, chopped up, and used in a new sound recording and composition. Most samplers sample to give songs added character or style, while others use sampling for the purpose of siphoning the popularity from previous songs to make theirs popular much more easily. In addition to the techniques, there are many more. So what makes this different than, let's say, a remix is you actually take bits of the song and you put it into a new composition. So you're not using the vocals from the original song anymore, right? So let's say if we chopped up the original beat and we made a new beat, but we used the original vocals from a song, that's still a remix. But if we put new vocals that had nothing to do with that song over the top of the new beat that we created with the pieces, it's sampling. And again, from our cover song, when I said it in the last sentence of that part of the video, if you take the entire beat and put your new vocals over the top, you see how it's the same thing? Even though you didn't do any chopping and flipping and screwing and all of that stuff, you still took portions or the whole thing and you put your vocals over the top. So therefore it is not a remix, but it is actually a sample of the entire track with your new vocals on top. And in that case, it needs a clearance. But I got one more thing to talk about here, and that is parodies. Parodies are covers with significant changes to lyric style, tempo, and original intended purpose, primarily for comedy or political satire. Many people recognize parodies as meme songs on social media, and in some cases, publishers may consider the clearance process for a parody similar to that of a sample due to its uniqueness compared to the original version. And the reason why they may consider it close to a sample is because it may rearrange the original version like a cover, or play it over just like a cover, but it's taking the same melody from the original arrangement and putting new words to go along with the melody. So it is kind of like a sample cover hybrid, if you will. You see what I'm saying? And so most publishers will tend to want to clear that like a sample, which brings me to this thought here. This is where things get ruthless, because no publisher negotiates things the exact same way, and no record label negotiates things the exact same way. The one way a publisher will see something over here and they'll say, we believe that a remix is this and a sample is this. And others will say, we believe that a parody is this and a cover is this. So things are going to get haywire at this point when it comes to the clearance phase. So let's jump into our first big step here in getting some stuff clear, and let's do it first with samples. So how do you clear a sample? To sample a song, you need clearance from both the master copyright holders, which are the labels, and the composition copyright holders, which are the publishers. Deborah Manis Gardner, speaking at an AIM panel recently, stated, the standard fee for composition, this is the publishing side, in 2024, in the sample is $2,500 per ownership share. And I'm going to explain that. Publishing clearances are never MFN, that's most favored nations, meaning that everybody gets the same amount once the amount is negotiated, with master clearances like in sync, okay? This is because labels do not get to own new masters, but publishers do get to own rights to the new composition. This means the master clearance side can be extremely expensive. Deborah prefers sending requests rather than offers because she says you never know what you're going to get on the other side. So let's address the composition share. So let's say that we have to go and talk to 5 different publishers to clear a sample on one song now, and we took a bit of that sample. And this sample includes the vocal and it includes the instrumental. And nowadays, even if you just did the acapella does not get separate treatment from the instrumental. It all is the same. Back in the day, it used to, according to Deborah, but now because she's cleared thousands and thousands and thousands of records, the standard now is even if you sample a vocal or instrumental separate of each other, all publishers have to be included in that negotiation. So if we have to talk to 5 publishers, no matter if this one had 5%, this one had 20, this one had 15, this one had 30, this one had 40% in the entire mix, all of them, the standard fee for all of them is $2,500. So that's 25, 25, 25, 25. We're already at 10, 12, 5. If we got to talk to 5 different publishers and get their clearance, the standard fee is $2,500. But that's not to say that the publishers can't say, hey, we want more because this song is more valuable. So if one says, hey, they want $3,500, then we got to go talk to the other publisher, but we never give them an offer. Because if we give them an offer or we let them know what the other one said they wanted, then when this one comes with their offer, right, then we have now kind of lowered our negotiation plane. So this is where things are getting ugly, and I'm gonna sit here for a minute. So now that you got that taken care of, that we have to negotiate with the publishers, let's go to the master side. That master side does not have a standard fee of $2,500. It could be whatever the record label wants. Now, you only have to negotiate with one partner in that record label, so that's cool. But the record label is going to have a higher fee because they won't get a portion of the new master, all right? It's not standard. They're not going to get that. And since they're not going to get copyright ownership share like the publishers did, that's why the publisher's fee was so low, the master side is going to be higher, okay? And in that case, it could run you anywhere from 10 grand and up. 5 grand and up, it just depends on the record label you're sampling from. You get what I'm saying? Now, let's go into MFN, or most favored nations. And I want to explain this again. In synchronization, most favored nations means that if on the publishing side, there is a pie of $5,000 to pay all publishers, and on the master side, there's going to be a master revenue pie of $5,000, then both have to sit at the same. That means the most favored nation, the master side is a nation and the publishing side is a nation. And the most favored nations will have to be $5,000. They have to be equal. But in this case, there is no MFN with the publishing side and the master side. This is why I said we could spend $12,500 here and we could spend $10,000 here and we can go up, or 5. It could be different. See what I'm saying? So the sample gets really, really, really expensive. All right, now that you got that one, let's go clear the next one. How do you clear a cover? I know a lot of you watching this video for this. Covers can be easily cleared if they are not significantly changed from the original arrangement in lyrics, song structure, gender, etc. Okay? Pay close attention to that. Sites like Songfile and EasySong can fulfill your mechanical licensing arrangements without much fuss. However, to get partial copyright ownership of the new composition, as well as performance royalties, you must clear the song with the original publisher. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. In many cases, the new cover artist will not get a portion of the new arrangement. However, if the publisher sees that there was some tasteful original changes, they will bend to give you some ownership in the new composition. So how does this work in clearing your covers? Most of you all will go through your distributor, and most distributors have a deal with either Songfile or EasySong directly. I know many have a deal with EasySong directly. And in this case, they're gonna take care of your mechanical fees for that record and send them directly through that party, and they'll probably end up at the record label or the Harry Fox agency. This is probably how they're gonna do the licensing. That's why I like to use Songfile, okay? Now, they're gonna alert the publishers that, hey, there is a record of yours being covered and generating mechanical royalties, and then that publisher will then go to their performing rights organization and register your version under their version at the PRO, the Performing Rights Organization. That's how that works. That's the easiest way to clear the cover, meaning that you're gonna let the mechanical rights organization alert the publisher. The publisher will then go register for the performing rights and we'll be done. Now, if there's any case in which you want to actually get a portion of publishing, you have to go to the publisher and negotiate that. And in many cases, when you begin to do that, you're going to run into extra fees that you might not want to pay because now they're aware of that. But at the same time, you can give it to them all and walk away and keep everything on the master side. This is why a lot of YouTube cover artists tend to do it, because when they do these covers and they do them really well, they don't necessarily have to worry about the publishing side because they didn't write the record or they didn't create the arrangement. And, you know, they can make a lot more money on the master side anyway, and everybody's happy. Let's go clear the next thing. How do you clear a remix? Remixers typically receive 0% publishing from the music publisher. I can already hear your gripes. And the record label often demands ownership of the master in exchange for a flat fee or royalty percentage. In this case, you're not sampling, but rather blending the original master and composition with other components or newly created compositions or beats. Now, even then, you're still using the original vocals from the sound recording that were part of the original sole performed arrangement. However, some publishers may be willing to negotiate as your popularity as a remixer grows, leveraging your branding in the remix. And this 0% is still according to Deborah Gardner, okay? Again, she's the OG in the game of sample clearances. She's been doing it since the early 90s. So DMG clearances, you all know DMG clearances, you wanna get your samples cleared, DMG clearances, and they handle it for a wealth, a plethora of artists all over the globe. DMG clearances is a place to go to get your stuff cleared. And this stuff costs. So, okay, I remixed this stuff, man. I made a new beat. I used the original vocals though. Can I get some publishing? In this case, the reason why it's gonna be 0% is because you took vocals from the original. And remember what I said earlier, the people who created the original beat and the vocal producers and the writers, all of these people are still on it together. And they're not gonna wanna bend on the publishing side just because you made a remix and you're giving the song new life, okay? So for all of my remixers out there and you're doing this to build a name, kudos to you. Keep building. Eventually, what's going to happen is people will come along and they'll say, hey, I want to commission you or pay you work for hire in the standard way remixes are done so that you can remix my record for me as a record label owner. And then I can now make money and I can give you a royalty on the master and you can make money. Now, I'm still not going to give you any publishing because I own the original arrangement and composition. But I want you to remix that for me, something that you would have did on your own, but I want you to remix it for me. I'm going to pay you a fee and then we're good, or I'm going to pay you a lesser fee and give you some points on the master. How does that sound? And this is typically how it's worked for record labels, and it is still standard in how it works for record labels. It is easier to do on a commission basis. And for S&Gs, this is something that I've learned about recently through watching that conversation with Deborah and DMG Clearances and AIMP, is that trailerizing is something that is really, really new. So it's like the trailer for Us or the Johnny Cash song that you hear every time there's a storm coming around. He's got like the Folsom Prison Blues. I hear the train a-coming, and stuff like that. They trailerize the original one by slowing it down, making it sound spooky and putting trailer sounding music with it. This is a new way that you can actually remix your original record to give it added benefit by pushing it into the sync licensing space. Something you should probably think about. Now, let's go clear our last remaining type of song, the parody. How do you clear a parody? Parodies are essentially covers with severe significant changes to lyrics, melodies, and arrangements and style of the original composition. In some cases, publishers will call it a sample if it is really distasteful, alerting the label that owns the recording as well to put a cease and desist on your song. It all depends though. However, you can expect to negotiate with the publisher to keep a portion of the composition because your arrangement is so different. All right. Now, the downside is it may cost you just as much as the sample on the composition side. So for those of you all who want to create parodies, like the record that went viral years ago, the next record, Why You Always Lying, you know what I'm saying, that record right there, or Weird Al Yankovic, those records will almost always, those type of records that you hear on TikTok will almost always live as they are without any clearance and without being sold anywhere, because it is almost too tough to clear that unless you make a name for yourself doing parodies. So a lot of comedians do these parodies and it actually helps the song, grow. And so the go-to people for doing that are comedians. And if it does blow up, then there will be a deal in place. But for many unknown people, the label may come along and try to, negotiate a deal with you if it gets popular enough. But on the beginning side, I wouldn't try to monetize this stuff. It's just too expensive and it's too much headache. So this has been a lot. It's very, very ruthless stuff here, man. But let's keep going. Now, if you decide to clear your songs, clearing songs can lead to valuable new relationships for future clearances. It also grants you ownership of compositions, building your catalog, and if you can afford the clearance, your catalog's value can increase significantly depending on the cover's popularity. All right? Cleared covers and samples allow you to enter the sync world confidently, and if your work is exceptional, you may even receive requests from labels to remix or cover their recordings simply because you've done such a great job with previous clearances. All right, this is your upside in this thing, man. I mean, again, you have to build a name for yourself. Clearance does give you access to a lot of things once people know that it's cleared. Keep your clearance letters on file so that when you go into the sync world, you can just hand them right over. I mean, but this is a win-win for you when you clear your stuff. It is expensive. This is a highly expensive game. So if you are sampling, you are doing remixes, just stay under the radar. Stay under the radar until you can afford to actually pay for it. Right? And the one thing the trick that I've learned in sampling, let's say if you're a heavily sampled artist, is just don't register it at the PRO at all. That's something that you got to chalk up to the loss. But even then, if people do recognize it, because there are people out here policing recordings for record labels. If there is a situation where that does happen, you risk losing a lot in terms of your records. Like you could lose your distributor's account, which removes your stuff from the streaming services, which is not a good look when you lose those spins and everything like that. It's very, very hard to get this stuff going. So you kind of want to be careful with it. You know what I mean? Let's talk about the downside here. If you are new and do not clear your songs, for standard covers, you can expect no trouble, but forfeit all of the publishing, calling it fair. If you decide to sample, however, you can expect multiple takedown notices, as I just said. Closed distributor accounts, or even worse, being served papers for small claims federal copyright court or big boy federal copyright court. Okay? These legal troubles will cause you headaches and financial strain. It will. And some of you all who are depending on the money from your music, if it's taken away, That's just the game, and you should expect it if it does happen, and you should not really worry too much about it, all right? And you shouldn't be dependent on the money for the music, from the music anyway, to survive, because it's never going to be enough, all right? But if you get the clearance and the clearance does happen for you, then you need to store that inside of a company, and I can help you build that with something that I created called a 60-day record label course. Because if you want to build your record label in 60 days or less with a foolproof step-by-step process, then jump into this thing right now beneath this video. You'll gain the ability to get real funding for the label and the publishing company that goes right along with it. You'll gain the ability to not screw yourself contractually, because I'll show you how not to. And on top of that, you'll keep the middleman out of your pockets, keeping more money for yourself from the publishing side and the recording side, okay? Click the link below to get started right now. And if you're skeptical about that, grab my free guide, 10 Major Steps to Increase Your Record Label's Profits. A free split sheet is included with the download. All right, Music Money Makers, so there you have it. This is how the clearance process goes. It's been a long time since I did a clearance video, but I think this was a lot more thorough video than the one I originally did almost 4 years ago. So, Music Money Makers, if you make music, you should always make money. Log on to musicmoneymakeover.com. Jump into the 60-day record label course beneath this video, grab the free guide, book a call on musicmoneymakeover.com, smash the like button, and I'll see you next time. Peace.